Hello, everybody. We are live, which is very exciting. So welcome to Politics Relaxed. I'm very excited to say we've got two special guests here with us. We got Rajan, who is an advisor on the James Cleverly campaign. And then we have Rehan, who is the comment editor at Raw and who's also at Conservative Party Conference. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We got some very exciting scoops for you. We're going to go inside the James Cleverly campaign and how it all came crashing down so quickly. And we're also going to be talking about Liz Truss and what happened, because I've heard Rehan has got a little scoop on that one as well. So let's get straight into it. I want to talk about Conservative Party Conference. Well, the mood was, it was a very weird conference, right? Rajan, what did you think of it?
I think that Conservative Party Conference this year was the first time that conservatism has been on the up. If you look at 2022 and 2023, both conferences marred by infighting. This conference took some time to bring the four candidates for leader together. We saw a different type of conference. It's a chance to not necessarily focus too much on what happened in the general election, and it was a time to really focus on the future and what the four candidates could bring.
Sure, and what about Rehan, what do you think?
I think it was really interesting going into the conference. I was expecting it to be a kind of a funereal atmosphere, given that the party have just faced their worst defeat in modern history, but actually it was probably the opposite. It was quite optimistic, people around the bars and really excited about the leadership contest, and there was a lot of kind of gossip and chatter, and I thought that was interesting. And I kind of thought to myself, guys, have you guys clicked on to the situation that you have 121 MPs in Parliament, and this is a major reality that you need to face up to.
Yeah. I mean, it was so weird. I mean, look, I've been going to Labour conference for like 3 years now, and Tory conference is nothing like Labour conference. It's very funny. Every event after 7 o'clock has free alcohol, if not before 7 o'clock. Everyone's going out, drinking. It did not seem like a party that has just suffered its worst ever electoral defeat at all. It's so weird, though. You listen to these people and they're like, well, the party wasn't conservative enough. I mean, is that the right response?
I mean, I think if you look at this conference, the party not conservative enough? I think that with the two leaders that we've got right now, they are definitely looking to... Yeah. They're definitely bringing a more strong conservatism about it. And obviously, I'm not very happy with the two choices that we have, but we are looking on the up, so I think that's fine.
Do you think so, really?
What, not being...
What? Do you think you're on the up? Like, I mean, this is...
definitely.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, of course, no one doubts Labour HQ was partying after James Cleverly got knocked out.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone was excited. But I still think that if you look at the seats, Labour's majority, they're all within 1,000 seats. Like 100 seats are within 1,000 votes. So...
They called it a loveless landslide,
if we just get some form of cohesion together, the next election could be very good, and I have no doubt that it's very possible that the Conservatives will be back.
I just don't see it, honestly. Like, you got Reform and Lib Dems, and those two forces are very difficult to contend with, because you either go too far to the right, which is what the party has decided to do, which is to go with either Jenrick or Kemi, or the other option is you go to the centre, and then you probably lose out on those Reform voters.
And I think it was interesting. The reason probably why the mood was so optimistic at conference was because there was a kind of beauty parade going on there was 4 candidates, and it was kind of appeasing the party membership. Everyone had someone that they were backing. Everyone was kind of discussing that, and the leadership candidates were walking around in big kind of coteries, and they didn't actually have security guards, but they were all walking around as if like VIPs, like I'm the Prime Minister. So I think it was interesting. But in terms of your question about can we get back the votes from Reform and things like that, I think each of the candidates represented something different. So whether it was Robert Jenrick, who wants to leave the ECHR, he can probably hope that he can get back Reform voters, and then there's Kemi, who's kind of taking more of a cultural tack to her kind of campaign, less on policy, more on values, which I think is interesting and appeals to a certain kind of wing of the membership. So I think they will be hoping that the candidates that they've got now, I think whatever the outcome, the Conservative Party is going to be decisively moving towards the right. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned the kind of the hubbub around the leadership, because it was so funny. I mean, look, I go to conference every time and I go and interview people, and that's a quick plug. Go watch the video where I go to conference and interview people, please. It's on YouTube. After this video, of course. Literally all of them, they run around with these big teams. It was a media circus. Everyone was there. All the cameras were there the whole time. I mean, I don't know what it was like being in the Cleverly campaign.
Should I tell you?
Please,
okay.
Go on.
Yeah. It takes a lot of people, a lot of good, talented people to run a leadership campaign. And I'm not including myself.
I was going to say, you're just talking about yourself.
No. But genuinely, I think if when I was going around, the people you need the photographer, you need the videographer, 2 ops people, maybe even 3 for operations, making sure the candidate and the team is where they're. Even I, as a videographer, need someone to back me if I'm running into a wall or something like that. So already you've got 5 people. Then you've got your press person. You need at least 1 or 2 press people to stand with the candidate as they're talking.
They like to tell me off every time. I mean, I get told off every single time.
So already it takes a lot of people to run a leadership campaign. So but Tom Tugendhat was very interesting. He was described as very presidential with the way he did his walkarounds.
James actually, it was interesting. James Cleverly for the start of the weekend was probably the least followed around of all of them. I would say it was really interesting. You know, you had Tom Tugendhat was very good. Despite probably being the least favourite candidate out of all of them, he was very good. I mean, obviously, like, Badenoch and Jenrick were always, like, mobbed. But, you know, Tugendhat did a very good job. But
I can tell you how.
Go on.
So what Tom Tugendhat did, or at least this is what I've been told, he had a select group of people, they could have been from his team or volunteers, maybe 10, 15 people, to advance Tom. They knew where Tom was going 10 minutes in advance. They'd go into the room. As soon as Tom comes in, everyone starts clapping.
Yes, and I remember this on the bridge. I remember after they had the debate on the bridge, I was just walking. They had a whole bunch of volunteers, and they're clapping.
So Tom's was very organised, let's say. I'm not going to say if it's good or bad. I think I thought it looked quite good, but that wasn't our style on the Cleverly campaign.
It was interesting as well, because I spent a bit of time with like the journalists there, like with photographers waiting for people, and they all know, like, this is a very, like, you think that it's like these, you know, these moments where they're like happening very quickly, but really it's all coordinated. Like this media like frenzy is a coordinated effort.
No, I mean, when you have the media and press that come to us, we just tell them we're going to be out our stand. It's not like we're it's not really that they just want to see us. You know, so it's not like we're telling everyone come. We're going to be here. Come if you want, and they were very interested.
No, it's really interesting. Everything is definitely very clearly orchestrated, and I remember actually when Liz Truss was doing her event, there were kind of queues around the block and so many different members that weren't able to get into it. But then I remember at the end of the event, there was so many journalists waiting at the main door. So there was kind of Emily Maitlis, John Sopel, Beth Rigby from Sky. There was so many journalists from all of the different kind of broadcasters. And then what did Liz Truss do? She exited from a different door just to avoid all the journalists. But then she still got hounded.
We're gonna wait. We've got the exclusive coming soon, so let's just wait on that. I want to talk about the leadership. I mean, I think we should probably let's start with James Cleverly. You know, we've got to talk about it. He went from being, I don't know. I mean, I have to say we had a bet on, right, about James Cleverly. We had a £5 bet.
Let's not call it a bet. Let's call it
a wager.
A deal.
A deal. If James Cleverly, I was insistent James Cleverly would never get to the final 2, and this guy was like £5. It was just like, and I was like £5. No chance he gets there. And then after this conference weekend, he has a barnstorming speech, and he goes to be the clear favourite, and then all of a sudden it all goes wrong. I mean, do you want to take us inside? First of all, during conference, what was that like?
Conference was fantastic. We got a lot of, as I said before, a lot of talented people working on that speech. Guys like Joe Tetlow from our policy team, Callum Price, who's our head of press. They spent a lot of time to making sure that our speech came together in the way that we wanted to, and it did. The crowd knew that. The media knew that. We were on the rise, and that's what saw us getting 39 votes on the Tuesday. Which sent us to first place, but then the day afterwards...
Not for very long.
The problem with politics is that MPs think that their vote they've tried to engineer their vote here. So some MPs would have been like, I can't stand Kemi.
Yeah.
James Cleverly will get through. He's on that. He'll be fine. I'll vote for Rob so that Kemi gets kicked out. The other group of MPs would have been like, oh, I can't stand Robert.
Yeah.
I'll vote for Kemi. Will not. Oh, James Cleverly will be fine.
Yeah,
He'll be fine. Everyone will. My vote won't make a difference. And when you get so many people doing that, it all comes crashing. So it's a huge disappointment, hugely gutting for all the people that worked hard on this.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine it. Like, yeah, it was probably the biggest political upset that's happened or the biggest political surprise that has happened in quite a long time in British politics, right?
I'll take you through the vote. We were sat in our office. We were getting ready for a live stream.
Yeah.
Post votes.
So I'm assuming one where you were celebrating the.
It would be one to say, potentially, if we got through.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending us through to the final.
Yeah, yeah.
We're now going to go across the country, gather support from members. And then we had all our cameras, all our equipment set up, ready for James to come in through.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of colleagues around. No one could believe it.
Really?
No one could believe it. And we went on to the media. The media didn't know what was happening either. No one could see. I did not understand what exactly happened until we went to our leaving drinks afterwards at the pub 2 hours later.
Yeah.
For 2 hours, I had no idea what went on. And that just shows that politics is politics, and that's life.
You had that all prepared, didn't you?
It was on my LinkedIn. I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you. Right. Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, right?
Yeah, and I think just going to the end of that about the vote, and I think it is really interesting when they say that the Tory MPs are the most duplicitous electorate. I think that nothing could be said truer about that. But just going back to conference, it was really interesting because going into it, kind of James Cleverly was not someone that I would have had, to be gaining the most momentum. I kind of had it as I get someone, probably Robert Jenrick maybe, to kind of instill his support. But I thought that was interesting.
For sure. I mean, the other person who had a big conference was Kemi, probably for the wrong reasons. I mean, it was a very odd conference for her. Obviously, with the maternity pay row. Any thoughts from either of you on that?
I mean, we know Kemi has history of being slightly rough with some colleagues, so I'm not too surprised. She does still have a lot of support within the membership, and I believe that polling shows her above
think she'll win.
Robert. I think that I'd like to see the two of them run their campaign. I've not decided yet.
Diplomatic.
I've not decided yet, so that's why I'm not gonna give any predictions, because as you all will know, as I will know, and as we find out, one day is a long time in politics.
I think it was interesting. Kemi definitely had a bad start to the conference. She went on the Laura Kuenssberg show and was kind of interrogated on her comments, and basically claiming that not all cultures are equal, and she kind of struggled to defend that, I think. And then she went straight from there to Times Radio and said that maternity pay had gone too far. And there was quite a few minor other slip-ups as well about I think there was the minimum wage as well, which probably rubbed some Tories up the wrong way. But I think the whole kind of the mood was about that, and then there was also about Jenrick, who had a few slip-ups, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But then I think when it came to the speech on the final day, you could argue that she kind of was able to build back the momentum. She did get a kind of rapturous applause in the room by members. So I think she probably was able to solidify her position to be in the top two.
I don't know. I guess I see Kemi as, if she were to win, I would see it as going in the similar vein as Liz Trusted, honestly, because she has a major communications issue. She doesn't know when to hold her tongue. She says these things that she probably truly believes, like the maternity comments or the culture comments or whatever it might be. She says these things that she principally holds true, but then as soon as she says them and everybody's like, oh my god, what did you just say? Then she draws back, and she's like, she's not really willing to hold on to them, which just seems weird. I mean, she gives off the vibes of like a sixth form debater quite a lot of the time, because she comes up against people like, I know, the Doctor Who actor, and makes that like a central thing, and I just don't see it as a way to run a party. I think that it will collapse so quickly. I mean, from a Labour perspective, I think Kemi Badenoch would be the ideal choice for Conservative leadership, because I just cannot see her lasting till another election, let alone winning one.
Well, I mean, I hope that whatever leader is chosen, that Conservatives can unite behind them. I mean, you know, I'm not going to say anything else, of course, because I think that's what the party needs, some stability. I mean, we've had James Cleverly's point, and it's a very important one. We've proven during the last 7 or plus years that the way to cause distrust amongst the public is to take a leader, throw them out. Take a leader, throw them out. So what we're going to want is some stability and some confidence.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talked about Kemi's kind of occasional slips of the tongue, but I think it's that what appeals her to Tory members, you know, whether like she doesn't pull any punches, and I think from a kind of Tory member perspective, it would give her kind of air of authenticity that kind of other candidates perhaps were lacking. Maybe even the dull Sir Keir Starmer lacks. Maybe some would argue, but no, I think, and then I think even from Robert Jenrick's perspective, you know, his kind of hard focus on immigration, leaving the ECHR. That's why those two candidates are the most popular.
Yeah, and I mean, let's go on to Jenrick. He had the issues around the army. I mean, he was talking about the ECHR and how it meant that we couldn't kill terrorists, we'd had to capture them. And then there was the row with Tom Tugendhat over putting someone that he knew in the army in one of his videos. I mean, again, a rough conference for him. He went from being the clear favourite to I don't know, being caught in the tailwind of James Cleverly, really.
I mean, I just can't think. Just put James Cleverly through, guys. Like, what have you done?
It's still a sore route.
Obviously, Robert and Kemi, I believe in a lot of what they say. James Cleverly a little bit more, but I'm still very sore.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the Jenrick campaign?
Yeah, Jenrick campaign. I mean, especially the claim that he said when he said UK special forces were killing rather than capturing terrorism suspects, that sparked a huge row with Tom Tugendhat, and I think that was something that he probably could have avoided. But no, I think just more broadly, he kind of failed to espouse any excitement with his campaign. He went in as a front runner, but then he obviously didn't come out as the front runner. And I think even the speech on the final day, he was the only candidate. I mean, he didn't use a kind of podium or a lectern. And I think he probably was trying to...
it was the three of them.
All three.
All three didn't
exactly.
accept
That's right,
I think he was probably trying to replicate, you know, what Cameron did in 2005, but it wasn't successful. And I think there was even some people next to me when I was watching the speech who kind of commented how large his suit was and his tie was not done properly, and it just kind of didn't give professionalism.
I think he's a weird candidate, because I think you're right. Like, professionalism, I'm not sure he's got that much, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how you really put it, but he's not this big beast of the Tory party by any stretch of the imagination. He's been immigration secretary and has done some dodgy dealings as a housing secretary. Like, this guy is not big caliber material. He's not the type of guy that you're going to be like, oh, he's going to go and barnstorm an election. But yeah, he was the favourite for a long time, and probably maybe still is the favourite.
I think a lot of that is because of how in detail he's gone through with his policy. I think someone described the two candidates we've got now, Jenrick versus Badenoch, as policy versus vibes. So neither. Well, not to say that any of them is the wrong way to do it. I mean, maybe it's too early for policy, and we just need vibes right now. But
I mean, that is Kemi's argument, right? We're in opposition for at least 5 years, so that kind of gives us an opportunity to rediscover, reimagine what the Conservative Party is, who we stand for, what kind of section of the electorate that we want to recapture, whether it's Labour, Reform, Lib Dems, because we lost so many votes in the election. I think that's why Kemi is probably the front runner, especially in a lot of the polling that I've seen. Just because those kind of values, kind of trying to redefine conservatism, especially in the UK, when in other parts of Europe, other parts of the world, you know, people are voting more to the right. So for the Conservative Party in the UK is a different beast entirely.
Yeah, it just reminded me as well. Let's talk a little bit for 1 second. Just go back to Cleverly, just to talk about that podium versus no podium discussion. I mean, take us behind the scenes on that one.
We were standing, all of us together in the hall, delivering a rehearsal of our speech with James on the stage.
Yeah.
We were debating, should we do a lectern, should we not? I don't know how it came about, but what we got the idea that the other three candidates weren't using a lectern.
Okay. Yeah.
So in our mind, our theme has always been, we need to get ready for government from day one.
Yeah.
Get the lectern out, be prime ministerial.
Yeah.
Show that we're not just ready to be party leader, we're ready to be prime minister.
Yeah.
And that was, in the end, the reason that why we chose the lectern.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on now to Tugendhat, the final leadership candidate. I mean, it was interesting for me to watch Tom Tugendhat. He, like, at least from a personal perspective, he seems like a very genuine, nice guy. I mean, the problem is his campaign wasn't very genuine, I guess. That's where it lacks. Like, he seems like a very personable guy, someone that's, like, popular within a lot of the party, but he came in as a moderate and is now, like, not... You don't know where to place him, and... That, I guess, that was one of the issues with the campaign, but he never really got going, right?
I mean, if you followed him around conference and his kind of team, you would assume that he was the front runner because he was very popular. Yeah. And you'd also be surprised at how many young people were attending conference, and he was very popular among young people, young Tories. And he had like a big gang of people following him wherever he went. Yeah. And also I think a lot of his policies, kind of being on the One Nation wing of the party. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that he kind of changed tack a few times. Yeah. I think over the summer he pledged to leave the ECHR just like generally, which I think kind of came out of nowhere because you'd never expect that from a candidate like Tugendhat. But I think from him also, when you look at him and you think of him, you just think of his foreign policy niche and expertise, and I don't really think he has at the moment anyway has the kind of temerity to be leader of the opposition.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you?
I mean, Tom, I really like a lot of his ideas. Tom obviously more on the moderate side, but he unfortunately just never could get the votes from the MPs. 21 was his absolute cap, and we knew that. We did the numbers. There was no way he was getting through on that second last round.
I agree with that, and I think it was always obvious from everyone that was at the conference that he was going to be the next that was going to be eliminated. For sure. But it was interesting. I was speaking to one kind of senior Tory source, and they were saying to me that whoever wins the campaign, they should make him shadow foreign secretary, and I think that was an interesting interpretation, kind of bringing the party together, uniting, especially as they're in opposition. So I thought that was an interesting kind of note.
Where would you put James?
Well, I'm not making the shadow cabinet.
Where would you put James?
Where would you put James? Yeah.
Oh, but definitely. I think he will still have a big role to play. He's one of the big beasts now of the Conservative Party.
You've got to have him in, right? Because of how much he was the favourite. Surely you have to have him in, right?
Yeah, at least you've got to ask. We've got to see. I mean, I know he's going to want to spend a lot of time with his two kids now and his wife. They've had a very busy few years, but shadow home, shadow foreign, decide between Tom and James. I would be fine with that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, let's talk a little bit about another person who made a major appearance at conference. It was probably, for me at least, the highlight. It was so exciting, which was Liz Truss, who turned up for one event, and I as I do, I was like, where do I get Liz Truss for an interview? And I was having some food, and then I was with Cameron actually, who viewers, like long-term viewers, will obviously know. Cameron and me and him were eating, and then I come out, I come into the main hall, and I just see a pack of like press, security, and she had burly security guards as well, like big security guards who were pushing like you away. And she was lapping it up, really. She would stand in the middle. She basically took us on a tour of the whole of the ICC Birmingham. And we went around, so she took us upstairs where I asked her a question. She wasn't responding to anyone. Me and Victoria Derbyshire were there trying to get the answers, but nothing. And then she walks around, and then she comes into the ladies' toilets. And then And I heard that we've got a little scoop here, right?
What?
Yeah, no, very, very.
What?
I must say,
I'll hear about
yes,
it.
and I must say, a warning for coarse language. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, very interesting. Yeah, so she goes straight into the ladies' toilet, obviously to avoid all the so-called pesky journalists. And there was actually a friend of mine that was in the toilet when she walked in. And apparently when Liz walked in, the first thing that she said was, "I'm fucking leaving. I've had enough of them."
So,
Do you know if Liz was trying to get anywhere when she was walking around?
well here's the thing, right? If I carry
I
on,
understand that she
yeah,
was trying to go back to her room in the
Yeah.
Hyatt, which
Oh, yeah.
was kind of connected to the ICC.
Yeah. So she what happened after? So she went and she comes out the toilet. Everyone's still there, and then she takes us one way. I went like, let me get in. And then she turns around and comes out the other side. So she like tried to like bait all the journalists into going one way, and then she comes out the other side. But then we take the longest possible route to get to the Hyatt. I swear,
yeah.
like. She knew where all the photographers were, and she literally ticks them all off. Like, for saying, these pesky journalists, I'm sick of them. Like, she was there. Like, she could have very easily not seen any journalists. But yeah, I mean, it was very funny. It was for sure my highlight. I mean, it was the busiest press pack of the weekend. It was one of the busiest events of the weekend as well. I mean, you couldn't get in.
You have to ask why. I remember last year as well at conference, Liz Truss's event was enormously packed. There was queues outside, but why are Tory members still so infatuated with her? Is it because she was kind of their choice in 2022 and then she was defenestrated so quickly? But no, it just makes me think, because obviously she did release a book earlier this year, which she was kind of promoting again with the Telegraph's Tim Stanley. But no, I spoke to Tim Stanley after, and I was kind of asking him what her plans were, whether she was planning to stay at conference, and obviously she hadn't publicly endorsed a leadership candidate, so he did kind of hint that she wasn't really going to be staying that long and she was going to be leaving. So
Yeah, and with that, thank you to you guys. I really appreciate you coming along. It was very interesting to hear your insights from Tory conference. I mean, this is the first proper Politics Relaxed episode of season 5. We're going to have a lot more coming soon. I'm hoping we're going to have lots of big interviews in here as well as the normal podcast. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Please like it, subscribe if you're on Spotify. I don't know what you do, but give it 5 stars or something. With that, thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.